Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is Thursday. So good to be with all of you tonight and thrilled to welcome once again into the Joy Virtual Studio our good friend, Dr. Peter McCullough. We are looking out for your health when no one else seems to want to do that, especially in the mainstream media. And we are talking to America's doctor, Dr. McCullough, tonight. I'm pointing it right now, Dr. McCullough. You're out there. You are for everything from routine childhood vaccines to COVID-19 vaccines to the myocarditis, pericarditis, turbo cancers, the disaster of transgender care and the abuse of children. Every topic that means something to the American people, you are right there at the forefront talking about it. I really appreciate that. So thank you for being with us again.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm broadcasting from the palatial virtual studios now of the McCullough Foundation. McCullough Foundation is a 501c3 fully approved foundation that's supporting the work of myself and others in the organization in terms of analysis, education, public policy on the topics you mentioned, so critical to American life.
Outstanding. And this is exactly what we need, the parallel economy, parallel foundations, parallel organizations. And we're beginning to see, let's start here with the medical freedom movement. Let's get an overview from you. We're going to talk about turbo cancers, pericarditis, myocarditis, Bronny James, all of the topics that you guys are interested in. But if you were to look at the medical freedom movement as a whole, it is the people like you and Dr. Pierre Corey and Dr. Robert Malone and myself, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who came out of 2020 and the disaster that was COVID lockdown, the forced masking and the forced vaccination, really resulting in a very robust 25% of the population that you identified many months ago that has not been vaccinated, right? And that's the beginning of a movement. It's an ecosystem. It can impact politics and economics and even our daily life. You're right in the middle of that as we move into a 2023 election season and then a 24 presidential election. Are you satisfied with the growth of this movement and where it's going? And is the word getting out to your liking?
It's a growing movement, no doubt about it. You know, I see patients every day in the office, more and more come in, and they've said they've either haven't taken the shot or they stopped after one or two shots, realized there's a problem. More and more doctors are saying that as well. So I think the health freedom movement is clearly accelerating in terms of its growth. And I agree with you. I think it will be a campaign issue at some point in time. None of the campaigns are really focused on it outside of that of Robert F. Kennedy, a Democratic candidate. But I think all of the campaigns will ultimately need to address it. It's 25% of the electorate that did not take a vaccine, and most of them have strong views.
Absolutely. We recently saw Ron DeSantis come out strongly with rhetoric in favor of investigating the COVID-19 vaccine. He started the grand jury in the state of Florida. We're waiting to see what comes out of that. The appointment of Dr. Joe Ladapo as his Surgeon General, very important as well. Do you think there will be any action there on that front prior to the primary and the presidential election?
I think his campaign will be enhanced if they do move into action. They can tackle some easy issues like illegal advertising of biopharmaceutical products. They can tackle also, availability and access to monoclonal antibodies was a huge issue in Florida. And they can quickly get to malfeasance, which is wrongdoing by those in positions of authority. So I think just by taking those constructive steps, his candidacy will be enhanced.
He has used the word a reckoning, which is the first time I have heard that from a Republican candidate. We know that RFK Jr., very good on this topic, willing to speak about what happened in COVID-19 and the lockdowns, and particularly the vaccines. Haven't heard that from Republican candidates, but DeSantis recently with stronger language and using that word of a reckoning. Like, we're not going to forget 2020. We're going to go back. We're going to look at the malfeasance. We're going to look at the corruption, and we're going to hopefully move towards justice. That's the way I read that statement. What do you think?
I agree. Multiple states are having sessions now in the Senate or the House or bicameral that are lessons learned. Today I was contacted by Nebraska. I've testified in Arizona, twice in Pennsylvania. States across the country, even local municipalities are having lessons learned. Multiple townships and municipalities across Idaho and in Florida have actually called for removal of the vaccines from the market.
Excellent. We saw that in Florida as well. Over half a dozen counties in Florida have declared the COVID-19 vaccine a bioweapon, which is very strong language. And these are very detailed reports and statements that are heavy with documentation, heavy with proof. And I think that, if this trend continues, it is going to trickle up to the bigger candidates, and they're going to have to address this. They've been avoiding this for quite some time. I think to their peril. I think it's time for them to wrap their arms around what was done and to fully address it. And that's going to set them apart. I think for Ron DeSantis, that will be a key determining factor as to whether or not he can pull ahead of President Trump. Despite the difficulties Trump is having with his legal issues, recently being indicted on the Jan 6 event, he still commands a pretty substantial lead over Ron DeSantis. I think this is the moment for him to be bold, and I hope he does that, because that recognizes truth, which is missing from our political discourse, I believe.
I agree. I think all of the candidates are underestimating the forgiveness of the American people. And all of us were learning early on in the pandemic. All of us were lied to some extent, even the President Trump and then President Biden who followed them. We're all lied to some extent now. And I think Americans would accept an apology or some recognition that not everything went right. We can't always double down and have that be the mode of operation in the country. So I agree. All of them will need to address it. You probably saw Vivek Ramaswamy come out and say, listen, he took 2 shots, but if he could do it over again, he wouldn't. And he hesitated a little bit. You probably saw Brett Baer's interview of DeSantis and said, did the vaccines work? And again, you heard DeSantis hesitate a little bit, but then he came out reasonably strong. All of them are going to have to be thoroughly prepped on all their vaccine talking points. So there's no hesitation. Yeah,
very good. We're talking to Dr. Peter McCullough. Moving on to, the situation with the COVID vaccines that we're facing now, moving into cold and flu season. And there was an interesting, a 7-minute video that was put together by Geert van den Bosch. And if you recall, Geert was very early on in 2020, I believe, when the discussion about vaccinating in the midst of a pandemic, he came out very early, very, very concerned about the potential for viruses to then mutate and then become more virulent, more dangerous, and in that being a result of the vaccine. So he, Gavi Foundation, he worked with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for some time. I mean, very highly regarded. This video, he stated that Western societies are going to be caught off guard. He can't stop warning enough. The link between increasing autoimmunity plus cancer rates, which we're going to talk to tonight, and increasing immune selection pressure on viral virulence. He said all COVID-19 vaccinees who experienced symptomatic breakthrough infection or received at least 2 mRNA shots prior to natural infection should now be taking antivirals. He said in both cases, what he's saying is that he's concerned that very serious variants will be emerging, and this is now almost a full year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years post-vaccine, yet people's bodies are still not equipped to deal with these emerging variants. What do you think is in store for us as we move into the cold flu season, particularly for those who were vaccinated?
There is a false narrative developing. You can see it now, where the narrative is trying to make COVID-19 like a seasonal flu. COVID-19 has no seasonality to it. We've watched it now for 3.5 years. It has no seasonality to it. And we see reports that, COVID is up heading towards the flu and cold season.
Right,
The
right.
state of Massachusetts had slipped in some legislation to have mandatory influenza and COVID shots in all students, K through 12. And it's now been proposed that there'll be a combination seasonal shot, COVID and influenza in the fall. There is no seasonality to this. Remember, none of the COVID shots even have theoretical protection more than a few months. So this idea that we would just need seasonal protection in the wintertime I think is part of a false narrative. People should be aware.
Yeah. We are seeing an emergence. This recently, a year ago, there was a report in Children's Health Defense that the NIH now has funded a malaria study. Bill and Melinda Gates are, of course, involved in this, but using GMO mosquitoes to vaccinate human beings. Recent report put out by Dr. McCullough that they have is, let's see, Principia Scientific International has reported that the genetically modified mosquitoes now have successfully inoculated a human volunteer with a malaria vaccine through the bites of infected genetically modified mosquitoes, and refers to them as 1,000 small flying syringes. So we are looking at mRNA in the food supply, mRNA vaccines being given potentially to cattle. We're looking at now these genetically modified mosquitoes. We have orange smoke bomb clouds descending over the East Coast, it seems like every 3 weeks. What do you think about just environmentally? It seems as if there is so much going on in modifying or changing or creating an environment that is almost toxic to humans in general. Can you give us some idea of what to be concerned about, what is conspiracy or not really as dangerous people? Because people get very scared about this stuff and they get freaked out. And, I want to dispel a couple myths if we can, but also have a clear understanding of what's out there.
I'm a doctor and certainly I administer medicinal products as well as vaccines. Remember, they're always controlled products and they always have a specific dose. So this idea that we could have vaccines and mosquitoes bite people with various doses is something that's just not going to fly from a medical jurisprudence perspective. The same thing is true with vaccines in vegetables or fruit. What if somebody eats a little bit? What if somebody eats a lot? We'd never be able to control dose-related toxicity. So those need to be off the table. 2005, WHO had a meeting. And they said, listen, if there's going to be, vaccines loaded into food, it has to go through the US FDA. So we've got to bring this out of the USDA, which currently does have programs to try to vaccinate against various enteral diseases through vegetable products and other food sources, and bring it through the US FDA. We also need transparency. There was an attempt in Missouri to have transparency about genetic vaccines in livestock. Republicans want it, U.S. Cattlemen's Association wanted it, but the National Cattlemen's Association and the Democrats didn't want it. They didn't want transparency. And so, now farmers are going to come forward and probably provide their own transparency.
Wow. So that's a good thing. What do you recommend people do? I mean, I don't want to consume mRNA in my filet mignon. So are there any good guys out there? Are there any good reporting agencies or any ways that people can reasonably address this for their families so that we're not ingesting, these types of materials?
Yes, you certainly can look at the U.S. Cattlemen's Association, former president Brooke Miller, who's a physician. Brooke has been on stage with me at CPAC. I'm in close communication. He's leading a charge, Attorney Tom Rentz and others. A lot of people want local sourcing of their meats now, and it's perfectly fine to do that. You can support your local farmers and do it. They'll tell you. I've talked to naturopathic veterinarians that say all vaccines are unnecessary. In modern farming, which has a lot of cleanliness and a lot of safety standards, that they're all unnecessary. This is what we know. Self-replicating RNA and DNA vaccines have been used in pigs since 2017. And we don't know what percent, but there's no labeling. I've seen enough, Shannon. I'm done eating pork anyway, or bacon. I'm just that's going to be out of my program. I'm watching beef carefully. and I'm watching the other food sources. Go to my Substack, petermcculloughmd.com. Substack.com. I've reviewed all these. We have to watch it carefully. Right now, choose organic. That has some safety to it.
Okay, very good. We're talking to Dr. Peter McCullough tonight on the Shannon Joy Show. We're going to go to break real quick. You can find everything he does at petermcculloughmd.com. That's petermcculloughmd.com. You can follow him on Twitter. His handle is at P_McCulloughMD. And you can also find out what he's up to at couragetofacecovid.com as well. We'll be back in a moment on the Shannon Joy Show. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. We are joined tonight by Dr. Peter McCullough. You can find everything he does and support him at petermcculloughmd.com. Follow him on Twitter. Let's talk about malaria. You're seeing this in the news. We know that the vaccinated mosquitoes that they've deployed and supposedly effectively inoculated a human being with were studied to treat malaria, and we're beginning to see reports coming out of Florida. A little bit. It's hard to know if it's a fear porn or if we're really looking at a resurgence of malaria, particularly in the U.S., which would just be insane. What are you seeing, and can you give us some clarity on that?
There always have been sporadic cases of malaria in the United States, so it's a false statement that we've never had it. I do morning report at major medical centers. I've done it my entire career. And every month there'll be a resident report of patient with malaria.
Okay.
Now, the question is, where did it come from? How did they contract it? Many times there's foreign travel, or we don't get a clear history. But there's always been some malaria in the United States. It's easily treated with anti-malarial drugs, so we don't have any problems treating malaria. And there are malaria endemic areas, South Africa, Central Africa, and then South America. But we have ways of managing it. The concern here is that companies are trying to drum up fear in order to promote vaccines. And so I featured a malaria story on my Substack. And sure enough, about a day or two after a malaria scare story, then a New Zealand company announces they have a messenger RNA vaccine for malaria.
Right. Well, and so we're beginning to pick up on the trend here of essentially it's the marketing strategy for the purveyors of vaccines. And I think vaccines are really the center point of the 21st century economy for a lot of these companies, where the human body, the human being, is the product, the consumer, and also the experiment. And so they necessarily have to protect every element of vaccination. But it's hype, it's fear, it's a isolated event, whether it's the measles, which they tried in Rockland County in 2018 prior to COVID-19 itself, and now moving into malaria or whatever the next variant is. It is always accompanied with some type of rollout of a major vaccine. And if they can get away with it, some kind of mandate, adding it to the childhood schedule, or some accompanying legislation that really does the work of the marketing for the vaccine company. It's a sick model, Dr. McCullough, but we're starting to understand it better, I think.
Well, remember, a blockbuster drug used to be defined as $1 billion of sales in its first year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, vaccine companies, tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars, no liability, and with emergency use authorization vaccines, no marketing costs, because the government does the marketing. And to make matters better, it's pre-purchased, so it doesn't even depend on consumer demand. Americans have had their fill of this, and I can tell you, a recent Kaiser Family Foundation survey showed that young parents like you with children, they are backing away from the entire vaccine schedule now. They said they had enough. We've seen study after study showing that going natural with no vaccines, the kids end up healthier.
That is a bombshell, because there has been such a lock grip on American culture with this concept of vaccines, that they're all safe and effective. They're peddled by pediatricians. Dr. McCullough, I saw documentation from insurance companies in terms of the reward, the benefit that pediatricians get for certain percentages of their practice being vaccinated, young children. And the numbers are staggering, somewhere around $400,000 to $500,000 per year that pediatricians can earn if they meet metrics, say 90, 95, 98% of their practice vaccinated. That's got to be illegal. I mean, how can they get away with doing this and incentivizing pediatricians to essentially sell a medical product to young children in exchange for compensation? It's insane.
They do it through insurance companies. And otherwise, you're right, that would be a stark violation. Doctors and hospitals can't collude. Doctors and drug companies can't collude, but they do it through insurance companies. And there needs to be reform of the Stark rules to include insurance companies. You're right. We found out Blue Cross Blue Shield Anthem was juicing doctors with $250,000 annual bonuses if they pushed the COVID-19 vaccines, a doctor with a typical panel. Even worse for pediatricians, as you mentioned, about $400,000. I can tell you, doctors don't make that much money, and that's a significant bonus that they get. I've heard of parents being told that they should leave the practice unless they take a shot because the doctor wants to keep that percentage high.
Yeah, that's happened in multiple situations here in New York State. And as the kids are going back to school, here's, this is a huge problem. In 6 states across the country, there are, they have repealed religious and philosophical exemptions, and medical exemptions are virtually non-existent. So in New York State, myself included, dealing with, sending my kids back, essentially, if our medical exemption is not approved, then a school superintendent is going to overrule the recommendation of a doctor and force children to get vaccinated against their will. It's happening in California and New York State. And I think that it's important that parents are now resisting and pushing back, because this has to stop.
You're right. There's 3 levels of exemptions. Every state should offer them. They're philosophical, religious, and medical. Yeah. And every state should offer all 3. Texas offers all 3. Recently, it was a big push down in Louisiana to get that 3rd one back up there. No one should be stripped of their rights here. Vaccines don't help everybody else. They only apply to the individual taking them. The individual takes on all the risk. Yes. And if the parent is not comfortable with the risks taken, then that child under no circumstances should be forced to take the shot.
I have to mention the wellness company has a wonderful program. They have medical exemption consultation where you can go in and consult with a medical doctor about a particular vaccine, whether your employer or a preschool or an elementary school, if they have these mandates. It's a really great service, and we're really thankful to be partnering up with the wellness company for that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into the turbo cancers and more athletes dropping on the court, on the field. It seems as if the injuries are ramping up, which is concerning because the uptake of the vaccine is so low. So are we looking at long-term, potentially permanent damage from some of these COVID-19 mRNA vaccines? We're going to hit that topic when we come back with our good friend, Dr. Peter McCullough. Welcome back to the Shannon Joy Show. This segment is sponsored by our good friends over at the Wellness Company. So thrilled to be partnering up with them as an affiliate. If you go to getwellwithshannonjoy.com, that's getwellwithshannonjoy.com, you can learn about all of the services and all of the products, the spike support, which I use every single day. Yes, I am unvaccinated, but the mRNA is floating everywhere, the mosquitoes and the food, and you just don't know. So that nattokinase is kicking in every day for me and also my family. But again, they also have a whole suite of services, medical consultation, a second opinion, a vaccine exemption if you need it for yourself or your loved one. It's all there. They even have prepper kits as we're moving into the cold and flu season. You don't want to be without your ivermectin. And so it's an amazing preparation kit that everyone should keep in their household. Go to getwellwithshannonjoy.com. That's getwellwithshannonjoy.com. Make sure you always use the promo code ShannonJoy. You'll get 10% off. Dr. Peter McCullough, Chief Scientific Officer over at the Wellness Company, and with us tonight to talk about the health news that matters to you. And Dr. McCullough, we are seeing athlete after athlete go down. Recently in the news, Bronny James suffers a cardiac arrest. Now we have KJ Hamler, a Broncos football player, is now suffering from pericarditis, pulled for the season as he's diagnosed with pericarditis, clearly one of the most common side effects, especially young men, 18 to 24, myocarditis and pericarditis as an impact of the COVID-19 vaccine. Yibing Wu, a Wimbledon tennis player, is now off the court. He is now pulled. He had a 187 heart rate and suffering from some type of myocarditis. And then we have also even Paul Offit, which I think Dr. Paul Offit was a super vaxxer. I thought he was really involved with the NIH. Maybe I'm thinking of someone different, but he's even come out now and is admitting a causal link between COVID-19 vaccines and the myo and pericarditis. This is what he said recently. It may be the spike protein mimics one of the proteins in the heart muscle cells. If that's true, then you're also inadvertently making immune response to your own heart muscle. But he's acknowledging that there is a causal link there. This is happening, years after people are getting vaccinated. Are you seeing this uptick? Are you concerned that it seems to be getting worse? The longer it goes, the more the muscle is damaged. Like, what are your thoughts on this?
No one knows how long the messenger RNA stays in the human body. It may be permanent or semi-permanent. We know the spike protein lasts in the body months to years. Recent paper by Lee and colleagues, 750,000 people who took 2 shots in 2021 compared to 1.5 million who did not take the shots. Lee found small blood clots in the circulating through the retinal arteries and retinal veins of those who took the shots 2 years later. It looks like the vaccines are long-lasting. We're seeing these disastrous cases, as you pointed out. Even doctors like Dr. Offit, he's very junior to me. He only has a few hundred publications. A causal link to the vaccines. The FDA said that openly in June of 2021. He's pretty late in 2023 coming around to what the FDA said 2 years ago.
That's why it surprised me, because he loves himself some vaccines. He's been in this business in the promoting. I know him. I remember his name from like 2015, 16.
He's so junior scientific. You can imagine he's 2 years late on a very simple acknowledgement that the FDA says the vaccines cause myocarditis. Now, it's not mimicking a myocardial protein. The vaccines go to the heart muscle. They install the spike protein. The spike protein causes damage to heart muscle cells itself. It's expressed on the cell surface and it's foreign. The body attacks the spike protein directly. It's not molecular mimicry. So he's got it wrong. Baumeyer and colleagues in Germany showed this clearly. We knew before COVID, if any athlete has myocarditis, they cannot compete because it'll trigger a cardiac arrest. What's happened is these athletes have taken the shot. They've either had symptoms or they've tried to downplay it. It's not becoming apparent they have myocarditis, and the first manifestation is either passing out or a cardiac arrest. Now, recently with the Broncos, you said pericarditis. I guarantee there was some myocarditis as well, and they just took him out of commission. Fabian Trump, a marathoner from Switzerland, she took 3 shots in 2021. She declared she had myocarditis. She's out. The case that really bothers me, Shannon, is Oscar Cabrera Adames, basketball player. He collapses on the floor in 2021 with a cardiac arrest. He's resuscitated. He declares he has vaccine-induced myocarditis from the COVID shots. And now he's trying to come back in 2023, and he dies on a treadmill test. on a readiness treadmill. He's not, I'm a cardiologist. I do treadmill tests my whole career. I've never had a patient die in the treadmill test. So now we've had a USC player, Nick Uchu. He had a cardiac arrest. He has a implantable defibrillator in place, presumably the subcutaneous ICD. I've met with pilot Bob Snow. He had a cardiac arrest due to the vaccine in DFW airport, and he showed me his subcuticular ICD. So you can actually return to sports as long as the leads are not actually inside the heart. I'm wondering if Damar Hamlin has a subcutaneous ICD, whether or not the USC player, and now we have Bronny James, son of LeBron James. He didn't have a full cardiac arrest. I told the media that.
Okay.
No reports of shocking. He was in and out of the ICU in a couple hours and home the next day. It was probably a false alarm.
Oh, wow. Okay. So is there any evidence? Have you seen any athletes coming back and healing or fixing or curing this? Or is it done? Is it curtains for, if you got the shots and it's impacting your heart, you're out.
Depends how large the initial damage is. 2 papers by Jenna Schauer in the journal Pediatrics were showing huge areas of damage in the kids. I tell you, a large area of damage is more than 15% of the left ventricle. She was describing, 20 to 40% damage areas due to the vaccine. It was extraordinary. It wasn't going away. Now we have a paper from Yale showing that 20% of the MRIs at about 9 months after the vaccine do normalize. I've seen this in my practice. The smaller areas can remodel and normalize. The larger areas don't. The key is to get a cardiac MRI. I've never ordered so many of these tests in my life. I only saw 2 cases of myocarditis before COVID, and now I see vaccine myocarditis every day in my practice.
Are you seeing in the medical community any acknowledgement of this? Like, what is it going to take to get people to wake the heck up and see this? Like, how many people have to drop dead? It's astounding. Well, let's start there. Like, are you seeing any movement among your colleagues that didn't want to touch us with a 10-foot pole a year ago, 2 years ago?
Many cardiologists are contacting me privately.
Okay.
Saying that they don't like what they see. They don't have the courage to come out yet. But I can tell you what can be done. Every person listening to this should go visit their doctor and express their current concerns over the vaccine. They should ask the doctor, did they take the vaccine, and are they still taking the shots? If a doctor is following the rules, they're on their 7th shot, and each patient should challenge their doctor.
I think that's a really important strategy that you were talking about right there, because most Americans are hesitant to go into, a situation with their doctor and try to educate them, right? Which is essentially what you're trying to do, or not even educate, but like ask them if they're acknowledging this. But I think that's what it's going to take. I think in the same way that I encourage people who are politically active and they're getting behind certain candidates, or they're getting geared up for the 2023 elections or 24 election season, I encourage them, like, you cannot let the candidates get away with not addressing this. You have to, at every town hall, every Q&A, every time they're out trying to earn your vote, you need to demand that they publicly address what happened in 2020 and put together a plan for what they're going to do should they be elected to right that and then make sure it never happens again. In the same way, I think it's going to take regular people in our movement going into their medical facilities, pediatricians, general practitioners, and asking those questions. And because then they can't hide from it. If it's just one person like crazy old me, and I got fired from a couple practices because, I'll ask those questions. But if it's just one person, they can write that off as, oh, that's just a crazy anti-vaxxer. That's just, she's just off her rocker. But if it's multiples, from multiple demographics, that has the impact of them thinking, okay, I can't hide from this anymore. I'm forced to look at it. And then when they're forced to look at it, then they can see the revealed truth.
It's true, or they can just be sensitized. I can tell you, my wife visited her gynecologist, and she was terrified of what his potential view was on the vaccine.
Yeah.
And she asked him, did you take the vaccine? He said, look at me. He goes, I'm old. I was scared. He goes, I took 2 shots at the beginning. He says, but for a young woman like you, I'd never suggest them.
Wow.
And then that was good from there. I mean, just some honesty. Most doctors did take the shots, but if they took the shots and they said, yeah, I took them, but now I regret it and I wouldn't recommend it for you, that's all you need to hear. And I think a lot of doctors would come around, but the patient has to bring it up.
The patient has to bring it up. And we're going to be talking, Dr. Clayton Baker, good friend of the Shannon Joy Show. He is up here in New York. You met him at the Summit for Truth and Wellness in the spring. And he's working on a short book. I think he's collaborating with some of our colleagues, but he's working on a book, and it's essentially a guide to navigating your relationship with your doctor, which I think is so brilliant. I think it's, because you do want to trust your medical doctors, but they're humans just like us, and they have all the same, fears and proclivities. And so while you do want to take their advice, there's also a self-advocacy that has to happen where you understand your body and you educate yourself enough to go in and be able to ask the right questions so that you can have that collaborative relationship. I think that's missing right now.
I agree. One of the most effective people I know is a pediatric dentist in Connecticut. And she brings it up with all of her pediatric patients and the family members and said, listen, she's just concerned with what she's seeing. Just express concern. You can do that in your friends circles, your family circles, Bible study, church, school, and just express concern. Say, I have somebody in my family who just passed away. Virtually every family now is touched by this. Somebody with a blood clot, heart damage, somebody who's passing away unexpectedly. We have an autopsy paper out. It received a record attention. It's on the Zenodo European Commission server right now, about 220,000 downloads and reads. The average paper gets 50. This paper is red hot. First author is Holscher from University of Michigan. And we've demonstrated that 73.9% of the deaths by autopsy after the vaccine are due to a vaccine injury syndrome.
That is an astounding study. This was the study that was suppressed and censored by Lancet, but it looks as if the censorship agenda is backfiring. And so can you explain why it's so significant? This study, because conducting the autopsy and determining that the COVID-19 vaccine was a factor. Why is that so critical? And why do you think there's so much attention given to the study right now?
The study was critical. I was approached by University of Michigan, Nick Holscher. We got the project fully approved in the graduate school. I'm a prominent alumni of that organization. And we conducted a thorough search. We looked for every single report of an autopsy, and they come in one by one. So it's hard to see a pattern. So we have to put it together to see the pattern. And the other thing we need is contemporary review, because some of the early autopsy studies, it was before these syndromes were known. So there's some autopsy studies. It was before it was known the vaccines cause blood clots. Or before it was known they cause multi-system inflammatory disorder. So we had contemporary review by 3 doctors who are experienced in clinical pathology and autopsies. And then we had a standardized search method and adjudication method, and we put it together. And this paper is getting record attention. There's a subsidiary paper now that's under review at a major cardiology journal on the fatal myocarditis cases. And this is clear. Remember, the FDA says that COVID-19 vaccine myocarditis is mild, transient, and inconsequential, and people should keep getting shots. And our paper clearly shows that it causes death. And I've written the American College of Cardiology, and I've told them, we have a paper now. The myocarditis causes death. So we can't, even the American College of Cardiology is still advancing a false narrative that there's more myocarditis with COVID than the vaccines. That's not true. COVID-19 in 2020 caused a few cases of myocarditis, none of which were fatal. And since the vaccines, the FDA says the vaccines cause myocarditis, and we've seen thousands upon thousands of cases as reported by the CDC.
Yeah, this is backed up by a recent Israeli study, what you just mentioned. This was reported by Louisa Clary, for all those citing false COVID-19 causes myocarditis propaganda, because that's what they're doing. They're saying the myocarditis is from the virus, not the vaccine. In an Israeli study of 790,000 patients has concluded no increase in pericarditis or myocarditis from COVID. She linked the study I looked at the study as well. It's also cited by Marty McCary, MD, who also confirms it. So you can take COVID-19 completely off the table in terms of the myocarditis and pericarditis. And I think that what your study did, the autopsies, are so important because one of the most consistent arguments that you will hear from Anthony Fauci and Birx and CDC talking heads and vaccine proponents is this narrative, this mantra of correlation doesn't equal causality. So you can have insane signals in the VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, where the signals are off the charts. 1.5 million reports, hundreds of thousands of deaths reported post-COVID-19 vaccine, but they'll say, oh, well, we can't prove it. Well, you don't, just because they died the day after they got the vaccine or immediately after they got the vaccine doesn't mean that the vaccine caused the death. And then they outrage you even more when they refuse to study it, right? So it's very convenient. They have all of these reports. They use that mantra, correlation doesn't mean causation, and then they refuse to fund studies or look at studies that could establish causation. You have done that. Thank you. This is why you're America's doctor, because that's what is needed.
Yeah, let me just address that. The CDC VAERS system is recording the deaths if people take the time to enter them. We think they're grossly underreported.
Yes.
But the CDC has us at 17,665 deaths through, I believe, July 23rd, which would be a record number, a huge number. But importantly, 1,100 occur on the same day they take the shot, either in the pharmacy or the vaccine center. 1,100 Americans have dropped dead nearly right after they get the needle. So this close temporal relationship, the biological plausibility, internal, external consistency, the autopsy data, the cohesiveness, this is what's called the Bradford Hill Criteria for causality. And I'm telling you, the vaccines cause these deaths.
We got to get them off the market. That's what we need to do. So, whatever we can do, you guys have these conversations with your politicians, have these conversations with your doctors, put pressure on them. They work for you. They're asking you for your vote. You don't work for them. You are not compelled to support any candidate if they're not going to address these issues. These vaccines need to be pulled from the market. And I'm pulling for Florida. I'm hoping that we can get something done there, hopefully pre 2024 primary. Tonight, we're talking to Dr. Peter McCullough. We're going to finish off the show when we come back. Keep it tuned right here. We're going to talk about the cancers, the turbo cancers. It is everywhere. I'm seeing it from the numbers. We're seeing it from the reports, anecdotally. We're going to get his thoughts on that when we return on the Shannon Joy Show. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. This segment is brought to you by our good friends over at Augusta Precious Metals. This is an amazing company. I'm so glad to be working with them, learning about investing in gold and silver, physical gold and silver, through an IRA. I have always been an investor of physical gold and silver, but I have not done the IRA thing yet. And this is a way to diversify your holdings. We know that gold has maintained value. It has been a source of value and wealth for 4,000 years of human history. There's a reason for that. And this is why people want to protect their investments by investing in gold and silver through the gold IRA. So I want you to go to AugustaPreciousMetals.com. That's AugustaPreciousMetals.com. Or text JOY to 68592. That's JOY, me, to 68592. They will send you a free gold guide, and you can begin the process of learning about investing in an IRA. They are a great company, and I love their sales philosophy. Again, it's not like a hard sell, and they don't use any of the tactics. They're very education focused. They're going to give you the real deal about gold, the benefits, the drawbacks, all of it, your situation, and they're going to let you know if it makes sense for you. So all you have to do is learn, and they're there and willing to teach. Go to JOY or text JOY to 68592 right now, and you can get started on learning about how to invest in gold and silver in your IRA. Dr. Peter McCullough is with us tonight to finish off the program. Thank you for so much of the work that you're doing. I want you all to go to petermcculloughmd.com. That is petermcculloughmd.com, or follow him on Twitter. He's the definitive source on so many issues. His handle is at P_McCullough_MD on the twits, which is now the X, which I don't like, by the way. What is up with that?
I don't like it. It looks ugly. You know, I don't know what's going on. Elon Musk and now Linda Yaccarino. But let me tell you what, I'm concerned. Cancer rates are up all over the world.
Yeah. Yes. And we had Dr. William Mackis, who is one of your colleagues, a fantastic medical doctor. We've devoted some time to this concept of the turbo cancers. I'm seeing it anecdotally. Are you seeing it in your practice? And what are your concerns? What is the mechanism from your research and what you've looked into that links the COVID-19 vaccines, the mRNA, the spike, to now these devastating cancers, fast moving, super, super aggressive? What are you seeing?
Well, two leading theories. One, Scott Atlas, former White House advisor, says it's simply we've fallen behind on screening, mammography, colonoscopy, and cancer care. That's one theory. Another theory is, come on, you know, we've been back to business for a while now.
Yeah.
That maybe it's the vaccines. They're genetic vaccines. Remember, cancers most of the time are a genetic problem. And so a paper from University of Pittsburgh demonstrated by Singh demonstrated that the S2 segment of the spike protein, which is installed with the vaccines, inhibits tumor suppressor systems P53 and BRCA. Those are tumor suppressor systems. That's worrisome. Now, Kevin McKernan, who I just featured on my podcast, has discovered that in Pfizer, but not Moderna, there are DNA fragments. They come off the rapid manufacturing of the vaccines. Remember, the DNA has to be produced coding for the messenger RNA, and the DNA is cranked through E. coli, and that has to be sped up with tumor enhancer genes called SV40. So McKernan's clearly identified, it's been verified now by multiple labs, that there are SV40 promoters and enhancers in Pfizer. So now we've got two problems. We have inhibition of tumor suppressor systems, and then we have activators of proto-oncogenes that could actually cause incipient cancers. And remember, cancer is always a multi-hit hypothesis. It's not one thing, but now it's not looking good at all. The biologic plausibility is there. We should have an emergency merging of the vaccine administration data that the CDC holds and our cancer registries across the United States, and the National Cancer Institute has them. That should be an immediate project to see if the two are linked.
In addition, Dr. McCullough, we're seeing cancers emerging in young people, younger and younger. Have you seen anything there, any type of studies or any information?
We are seeing it clinically. So you mentioned the term turbo cancer. It turns out that's a very good way to think about it. So cancers that form and then have a very rapid progression, much more rapid than what we usually see, that would imply an inhibition of tumor suppression. And then on top of that, we're seeing reactivation of cancer. So a cancer is in remission. Remember, for most standard breast, other solid organ tumors, it's a 5-year period of time when we have to be worried. Then once beyond 5 years, we're out of the woods. We're seeing reactivation of cancer, so-called turbo cancers. Until proven otherwise, we should be greatly concerned about the vaccines. They were never tested to see if they were safe in cancer risk groups or in those with cancer.
This is a report from Dr. Mackis on his Substack, and this Dr. Liz O'Riordan, tragic story. She was diagnosed with breast cancer, and in 2015, at the age of 40, she had a mastectomy, reconstruction, the whole 9 yards, and she beat it. Then she emerges. She's one of the most influential medical influencers on Twitter, and was heavily promoting the vaccine, pictures of her getting the vaccine, her vaccine card. From what we can glean from the information on her Twitter account, she had 4 vaccines. And just a couple days ago, she reported to her audience that her cancer is back. She even reported of having rashes in the right after the vaccine. She reported getting rashes at the site of her mastectomy, like this weird rash that she had a hard time explaining. But this is tragic. Her prognosis is not good. Her prognosis is not good, and this is what I've seen in my own life. People getting these aggressive cancers and they're just done. 3 months. It's insane.
Remember, there are studies, one from my former institution here in Dallas, showing the vaccines do distort breast tissue. So the vaccines travel into the lymph nodes, they distort breast tissue. You can imagine a woman with breast cancer recovering would be very concerned that the vaccine would go right into the breast tissue, which it does.
One of the stories in a recent study that I read talked about women getting breast cancer on the side of their body, in only the breast, that on the side of the body with the COVID-19 shot. And that stunned me, Dr. McCullough, because I have a very dear friend a year ago, and she's super funny. She jokes about everything. I love her dearly, but she called, she was diagnosed with breast cancer and she called it her Pfizer boob. She's like, she got the vaccine. She said, I got the vaccine. And that night, her entire breast just completely exploded, swollen, painful. Just months later, she was diagnosed with breast cancer in that breast. Yeah. And so to see that as a case study in one of the recent reports that I was looking at is astounding to me. How many other people are experiencing this? How many other women are experiencing this? And
there's a paper from Stanford by Rolkin and colleagues, did lymph node biopsy and sampling, and they found the messenger RNA is stuck in those lymph nodes for months.
The lymph, and that distributes to the bot, right? It's like it's insane. That is terrible. Let's end on how to protect. So many people got the COVID-19 vaccines. It looks as if there are going to be long-term impacts, tragically. Luckily, 25% did not, but we're still dealing with shedding. We're dealing with the mRNA. What would you say daily protocol for people in general? Because it seems like the entire environment, it's like everything is being thrown out, everything but the kitchen sink in terms of assaulting our bodies. Right. What would you say to people for regular regimen to just protect?
Right. Well, I have a major paper now accepted for publication. It'll be out in the major literature, peer-reviewed literature shortly. This is very, very important. It's called base spike detox. The problem is the spike protein has been loaded into the human body. We can't digest it with our own cellular enzymes. But 3 natural products can really help based on preclinical data, clinical, and actually some randomized trials. The first is nattokinase. Nattokinase, 2,000 units twice a day. Best product out there is the Wellness Company spike support form of nattokinase. The next product we use is bromelain. Bromelain is another family of enzymes derived from the stems of pineapples, 500 milligrams a day. And then the third is another natural substance, curcumin, derived from turmeric, the liposomal form preferred, 500 milligrams twice a day. That triple combination you can buy over the counter.
Yeah.
And you should take it at least 3 months. Some of our patients sicker, they need it 9 or 12 months. It is powerful in terms of being a blood thinner. There can be some allergies, so make sure you're wary of the potential side effects. But base spike detox is something everybody can do. Doctors can add other drugs to it, Shannon, but I'm telling you right now, we are universally recommending it. We don't have time for more studies. Too many people took the shots. Right. The studies will come in, but we have to act now.
What have you seen? I've seen a little bit about fasting, which looks interesting to me. Dr. William Eck has talked about intermittent fasting and is a part of your regular daily diet, but also some of the longer term 48 to 72 hour fasting. Autophagy, I think, is the process that sets in. What are your thoughts?
Right. Right. What we're trying to do is encourage the cells to undergo their normal senescence. And a way to do that is to intermittently fast. Remember, fasting is part of almost every religion.
Yeah.
I think probably actually for its age-old known health benefits.
Yeah.
So intermittent fasting certainly can be done in addition to base spike detox. But again, the base spike detox needs to be the base of care. Shannon, I'm going to have to let this be the last comment because I have to move on to another commitment. But let me tell you, make sure you go to my website, Peter McCullough, MD. That'll take you everywhere. But importantly, the McCullough Foundation, McCulloughFND.org. That's now fully 501c3. That means tax deductible. We need support because I am involved in over 100 legal cases pro bono, staff involved, lots of effort. You see me in the media every day. Yeah. This is an opportunity now for big time support. And I think your listeners are so important to our effort and whole. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Of course. And we'll send everyone there for sure. We'll put it up in the show notes. Dr. Peter McCullough, thank you so much for everything. We'll see you again.
Thank you.
Such great information from our good friend, Dr. Peter McCullough. We are going to close out the show. It's so good to be with all of you tonight. Make sure you go to summitfortruth.com. That is summitfortruth.com. The summit is on October 21st. It's coming up quickly. We are going to sell out. It's going to be a great event. We're expecting well over 1,000 people, and we cannot wait to hear from just powerhouses. Dr. Naomi Wolf, Dr. Robert Malone, Jeffrey Tucker of the Brownstone Institute will be with us again on October 21st, but you got to get your tickets. So make sure if you're in the sound of my voice, even in, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Southern Tier, Northern Pennsylvania, you're within driving distance of Rochester, New York. We want you to come out here and join us for this really great event. It is the Summit for Truth and Wellness to benefit Americans for healthcare alternatives. This is an organization dedicated to creating a physical, holistic hospital, merging Western medicine and natural healing into one physical freestanding building where people can be seen and they can get well. That is the mission. And that's why we are doing the second annual Summit for Truth and Wellness with Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Naomi Wolf, and Jeffrey Tucker. So go to summitfortruth.com. That's summitfortruth.com. We're going to have so much fun. Also, a big thank you to our good friends over at Native Path Collagen. We are so thrilled. 55% off. I use collagen every day. You need it to replace collagen as you age. You lose it and you got to put it back. So I use collagen in my coffee every day. And Native Path makes some of the best high quality collagen on the market. You can get it for 55% off if you're a Shannon Joy viewer or listener. Go to stopboneonbone.com/joy. That is stopboneonbone.com/joy for your Native Path collagen. And last but not least, I know Dr. McCullough talked about the nattokinase and the spike support. You can get that at getwellwithshannonjoy.com. That's getwellwithshannonjoy.com. It is the best on the market in terms of helping to battle against that spike protein. And again, we're getting hit from every angle. So go to getwellwithshannonjoy.com and make sure you use that promo code ShannonJoy. You'll get 10% off. In addition, they have consultation, they have medical exemptions, they have the Freedom from Pharma program, which is so amazing. That's where you can, with a doctor and a pharmacist, begin to look at potentially getting off those pharmaceutical drugs that have side effects and they impact your health in other ways. And people now, they just want to get back to nature and natural healing. And Dr. McCullough talked about that even within the scope of the regular childhood vaccination schedule, right? It's looking as if natural is better. Your immune system, your natural defense, it's there for a reason and it works. We don't need to enhance it with these technologies and synthetics and metals and chemicals. The body is meant to heal. And so it's one of the things I love about the wellness company is that they kind of merge that. So getwellwithshannonjoy.com and make sure you use that promo code ShannonJoy. And lastly, thank you to our friends over at Augusta Gold. If you're interested in learning about gold in your IRA, text JOY, J-O-Y, to 68592. Thanks for being with us, guys. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on the Shannon Joy Show.